These are the instructions for the two extra credit assignments that are linked to lesson L04. We'll call them X04-01 and X04-02. So these are things that you would typically do when you're wanting to get a small set of records and a constrained set of fields, and maybe even derive a field. Again, you need to watch the lesson video for L04 to understand what I'm talking about right now. But once you do, you will see how to make a select query using the query by design grid, and then utilize that query as a source to a report that you create. So we want to do that here. And again, this is very similar to what you did in tutorial T04-01. It's also very similar to what you're doing for the report on the project, on the first project. You're going to make a query, a select query, and then build a report using that as the record source for the report. So here we go. This is pretty straightforward. In fact, the first one is so easy, and almost anybody should be able to do this without any trouble. I give you almost all of it, exactly how to do it in the instructions in the lessons. So, X04-01 is about select queries, and I just want you to basically go in and reproduce those queries that are shown in E04-02 through E04-09 in the lesson L04-data visualizations.pdf. And then I want you to create two others. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. But let's go over there to the lesson first. And you'll see that in the lesson, there's an example of the query that's used in T04-01. And this really here to show you the different parts of the query by design grid. Again, this is a tool that Microsoft developed that helps you basically build select queries. Behind the scenes, it's actually creating the SQL, the structured query language code for a query by just doing this visual example. Basically they call it an example, but it's really a visual template of how you want the query to work. And you'll see what you do is you drop in your tables that you're going to use to be a part of the query. We only have one subject table, so we bring that in here. We pick the fields that we want to use in the query off of that. We don't want to use them all in this case. We're just picking certain ones. We want to sort these first descending by the close date, and then ascending by the eBay number. So we've got these sort fields in there. And you can see that in this list, the auction close date is after the eBay item. So you could reorder how you want to view these so that you could sort them in the correct order. Okay, it will always descend left. Sort left to right. So it's going first sort these in descending order, and then within that, anything that has the same date, it'll go in order its eBay number in ascending order. Then one of the other fields, and you see the ones that are checked, those are the ones that are actually going to show when you run the query. But you could have other ones that you could reason off of that you don't show. For instance, we only want to bring back the auctions that actually had bids in this one. So we're looking at those where the criteria is greater than 0. In other words, there was a winning bid on these auctions. Okay, we don't want to bring back the ones where there was at least a bid on the auction. This counts the number of bids. This field, it's an integer field. So we might get 16 bids on an auction. If we have 0, we don't want to bring it back. Now we can't have a negative number, so we don't need to test for that. So we're just testing to see if it's greater than 0, then we want to bring back the record that's associated with this, but we don't want to show the bids themselves. We just want to show these over here. There are 3 other fields, we're going to call them fields, that we want to show, but they're not really fields that are in our table. They're derived fields. Just like we had derived control, we could build a derived field that is a function of other fields that do exist. So we have the sale cost, which is things like the winning bid and the shipping and all that. Basically the amount it cost the end user to win the item. That's what we're going to call the sale. And then the expenses, we had to do to put the thing up for auction. So it's our listing fee and it's any shipping costs that we might have on it and all that. And then the profit would be then the difference between what we got for the sale and how much of an expense there was. So we do that by actually writing expressions for each one of those. Now you might notice that each one of them is prefaced with what we want to actually to look, what the caption we want to have in that field when we run it. So we will always have, when we have an expression, something with a and then colon space and then the expression. So this is the one for sales, the sale. This is the one for the expense, and this would be the column for profit then. Another thing I want to point out really quick is the profit. You can't just say take sale and minus expense because these fields really don't exist. They're derived fields. So unfortunately, you have to have everything that you had for sale to calculate sale. And you put that in parentheses, and then you minus everything you have for expense in parentheses. So you have to spell it all out again. But it's usually not a problem because if you've done it here and done it here, you know what it is, and you can just copy this over in there, put parentheses around, minus sign, again, parentheses, and then what's in here. So another thing that you will need to use in at least one of these queries is the property sheet for the query. All you have to do is right click somewhere in this area, where you don't have anything at the top in the query in the QBE grid. They call this the query by example grid. Click anywhere here in the right, and it'll open up the property sheet. And there are certain settings on this then that will even trim down your query more depending on what you want to have. And I'll show you one of those in a second. But for this particular extra credit assignment, I want you to do E04-02, and this is one where what I want to do is I want to show the product codes of the products whose prices are at least $100. And I show you exactly how to set this up, and then when you run it, you should see this. Save it. I think I told you how to save these. I would save it as QRY 04-02 or something like that as when you save the object for the query. So you could go up into the query builder at the top and just open up a blank QBE thing and drop in your table, and then pick you basically select the fields you want and you drop them in here, and the ones you want to have shown, you make sure they're checked, and the ones you don't want to show, like this, we don't want to show the price, we just want to show the codes that actually have a price over 100. Could I have had this on? Sure, and then I would see what their price actually was right next to it. But if I just want to isolate, hey, what codes did I have over 100, and leave it at that, 100 or more, then this is how I would do it. I'd see them like that. Don't mind this thing at the end. Okay, you're always going to see a thing to add, and I don't know why they do that, because you can't really do that on a select query unless it just is all required fields. So anyway, just don't ever worry about the star on it. But these are the actual values that you're bringing back from that particular query. Pretty straightforward. And again, I've got 9 of them in here that I want you to do. I'm sorry, 8. Is that right? No, I've got, let's see, 9 through 8. There's 8 of them in here that I want you to do. Okay, this one would be give the codes, prices, and extended prices for those products with extended prices of at least 3,000. So here's an interesting one where you actually have a derived field that's called extended price. You want to list those in descending, the records in descending order based on that. You want to show that, so you got it checked. But you also only want them where they actually the expression evaluated to be over 3,000. So you could say greater than or equal to 3,000. That would work too. But in this case, we just want to know which ones actually had a price over 3,000. So those are the only records we're going to be bringing back from the table, are the ones that after we've done this calculation, it comes out over 3,000. We're going to bring them back, and we're going to bring them back from the one that had the largest extended price down to the one that has the smallest. It's pretty amazing how the intricate sort and everything that you could, the intricate view you could do from just having a few fields and a couple criteria on it. Then there's one about where I want you to actually bring back anything that has half dome in it. So I just want to do this to show you that you can do a substring search on this. But we'll also do another expression where we round the price to the nearest hundreds, just to show you that. Okay, and now here's the one where you're actually going to need to have the property sheet of the query open. Because what I want to do here is, it turns out we have price breaks on all our things. Things are either $50, $100, $130, $300. There may be others, okay? So I want to know those price breaks, meaning that we could have multiple, in this particular database, we have multiple items that could be $50, multiple that could be 100. But we don't want to bring back 50 over and over and 100. We just want to isolate what are those unique values in the price field. Okay, so I want them in ascending order. So I just put the price in here in ascending order. And then I open up the property sheet and I ask for unique values, not unique records. Be careful about this. It is a common mistake for people to say unique records, and I don't even know what that does, to tell you the truth, because I guess it would be if for some reason you had duplicate values, it would let you know. But I don't. Most of the time, that just won't even happen. So usually it's unique values. You could have said the top two and make them unique and say the top two, and then we would just get 50 and 100 or here. Those would be the first two that would show up or something like that, given that it's ascending order. So, but we want to bring them any unique value back, so we just say yes here. Right, then there's one where I want you to show the codes and their prices, or the list prices are between 100 and 300. Again, I'm trying to give you some exposure to the different kinds of criteria. This is just our between something and something that we've used before in validation rules. Same type of syntax. By the way, you might notice that there's this criteria line and then there's the or line. Okay, if I had an or situation where I wanted to say is not null or between 100 and 300. I could do that all on one line, or I could say between 100 and 300, and then on the next line say is not null. Think about going across the criteria line as if you had ands. So in other words, maybe I said bring back, well, the product code would be a bad one here. Let's bring back, oh man, in fact, it's not even shown up here. It should be. I don't know how that happened, but I got to figure out what happened there. I think my gut feeling is the product description here is really the product code. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, let's say this was product description, and I had in the, Half Dome was one. Okay, I'm looking for, I could say like Half Dome and a price between 100 and 300. I could have both those criteria here, and it would act as an and since they're on the same line. But when you go down, it's doing ors, and you can have multiple ors here. You can look how many they give you. I don't know if I've ever done more than three on one of them, but can you have something like this or that? Yeah, you bet. You could put a criteria here and then put one here. So maybe I have Half Dome or between 100 and 300. I could make Half Dome here and then put between 100 and 300 on this line. And again, I explain a lot more about this whole thing when I do in the L04 video. All right, this one is show the code description price. Boy, I say code a lot, but I don't see code up here anywhere. It should, something's was left out of here. There should be something that's called txt product dash code up here that you're not seeing. I don't know why that happened, but that should be up here. Show the code description price and current stock for price greater than 100 and current stock less. So here's when you got the criteria where it is split across two criteria lines. So this is an and situation then. And then here's the or, where they're split between the fields, but they're on the or, they're going down. So this one is 100 or this is price being greater than or equal to 100 or the current stock being less than or equal to 600. So it gives you a different kind of view. You'll see what ought to come back when you run these if you do them correctly. And then finally 09 is this is yet another or situation. Oh, I know why I did this one. This is interesting. Okay, so we want to show the code, and then we want to show the description, and then we want to show the price in descending order, And then we want to show the current stock. We don't care about its sort order. But then we want to have another sort on the description. Well, we always already use the description, but we want this one to be sorted first and then this one second. All I had to do was put this field in here again, say ascending, but not turn it on. So I don't see it twice, in other words. And this will work. You could. This is one of the cool things you could do in a query grid. You could drop fields in here multiple times if it makes sense to do that. But of course, you're only going to want to show it once at the most. All right. So that took care of that. So I want you to, for X04-01, I want you to build these again. I'm giving you a work file. You go in, use the thing, the option in Access to build a query. It'll open up the grid, and you do this. Okay. Save each one of them, and save each one of them by their example numbers. So prefix them with QRY, which means query, and then E04-09 for this particular one. Okay. Then I want you to make two more. We'll call them E0. We'll call them E0410 and E0411. Or call them whatever you want. So you call them your query, QRY, your query 1, and QRY, your query 2. I'll know that these are the two that you added to it, okay? And I want you to build some interesting queries. Don't just make a select query where you're dropping in some fields and say that's it, okay? Put criteria on and do an interesting sort, maybe do a derived field, whatever, again, you might really impress them. You make a really nice, interesting, intricate query, and I'll give you some extra points. If you just give me a select query, you're not getting very much. So, a straightforward select query. So, anyway, but play with it. This is an opportunity for you to really roll up your sleeve and get yourself introduced to what a query is. A query is a view of your data. All right. And yes, a query can bring back all your data, and then it's called a complete view. We rarely have to do that. We will usually just use use the table then if you're going to just bring back all your data. But if you want to do something with that, limit the number of rows or limit the number of fields, place the criteria on fields, derive values from fields. This is an excellent way to make a subset basically of your data and get it ready to actually do a report on. Some queries are done so well that they by themselves can serve as a report. You could do things like tally up numbers in columns by using the totals option that's above, and I do that in the video. I show you how to do things like that, okay? But again, most of the time when we want to add some pizzazz to the view, we want to put it in a report, make it really nice, have it nice formatted and everything. And if we want to group things especially, that is a better way to do it than just doing it through a straight query. So select queries are basically read-only queries. That's why our reports are read-only. We cannot go in there and change the data while it's in a report mode. We can't change the data while we're in a select mode, okay? However, the interesting thing is this is kind of take that back. You can actually change the data in a select mode. The problem is you could change the data to the point where it violates one of your criteria. When that happens, you'll see the record disappear from this view. It didn't get deleted back in the data in the table, but it will disappear from this view, okay? And I could actually do some operations like deleting right from here, where not only will it take it out of the view, but it'll delete it from the table. That's why I always say just use select queries for read-only situations, okay? Later in the class, I'll talk to you about some other kinds of queries that exist that are called action queries that can actually change your data. The good news in this class, we will never need them, all right? But when I do the advanced class, we do them quite a bit because there are some that database administrators use often, all right? But for what you're doing, typically the amount of data you have to deal with, you could go through either the data sheet or through a form in order to do that kind of data management. So that's the first one. And again, use the work file I give you. There's some instructions about what I'm trying to make sure you get through here. I think I did ask you to do that first one too, didn't I? I may have done that. Yeah. So, you do that as part of T0 E01 design, it shows the query. Oh, this is just to tell you where to go look for information about how it was used. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. That's why. Okay. This one here, I'm sorry about that. This one here is about just doing those 8 queries and then 2 more of your own. All right. And again, there's some good instruction about what queries are and all that. I was actually moving down into the tutorial then where it used that first example query. That's what this was here. So let's go back to the instructions though. Oh, by the way, those that sale, that expense, and that profit that was used in the T0401 A step 3, I give you those actual equations here. Okay, try to build them yourself. Okay, use the expression builder that's in there or the Zoom option if you just want to type it out. But if you have trouble, this is them. You can just copy them in, paste them in. Again, this one that has the line break in it, be careful of that. Sometimes it'll put a carriage return in here, and you don't see it, and then it'll give you an error. So be careful with this one. If you happen to get an error on the profit one, you probably have to go in and type from this point on anyway into it. So that should take care of both the query that's in T0401 and the first extra credit. So now let's go look at the second extra credit. And truthfully, I would really prefer that you go on and do project one before you do the extra credit. This is really just to help you understand a little bit more depth about querying and to hone your skills a little bit about subject reports. If you've done P01, you've already created a much more intricate subject report than I'm asking you to do here. But I would like to do another one just for practice purposes, and I'll give you 5 points for this simply because by this time, again, you do know how to do it. And what I really want you to do is just create this report right here. So you will create again a query that will be the source for this, and you can see I give you the subject table with the data in it, so you can see what fields I'm actually dealing with when I do this, when I create the query. Okay, and the current stock value is a derived field that is the price times the number in stock. So the price for each item times the number of that we have in stock of that item, that is the current value of that item then in stock. And then I want you to sum that up across a category called diving, another one called climbing. I mean, whatever categories I have in there, give me a category view of this, and then sum up. And you can put the subtotal at the top here. I know on the other report we put it underneath in the footer of this. You don't need to have a footer. You could put both the name of the department and its current stock value in the header of the group header. And then I want you to have a tally down at the end of how much we have in stock, the total amount. So very similar to the things that we did in T04-01 and in Project P01. I just want you to do something like this again. You can make it look however you want to. There are no conditional formats on here, but again, this one here is a derived control. It's a derived text box control that takes this one and multiplies it by that one. And I think that's it. I gave you a compiled version of this so you could see what that would look like. There it is. And again, I have a little switchboard on here to navigate to. You do not have to produce this at all, but you just click on that and it'll take you to it, and it'll take you to it's in report view in this case. So you can see just basically the same thing that you saw in the other one. So again, make it look really nice. Spend some time on it. Get used to making these things look good. This looks pretty professional. And again, I think people would be able to look at this and know that that's the subtotal for diving, that's the subtotal for climbing, that's the subtotal for camping, that's the overall total. And I got one for each of these items that are in here. So anyway, kind of cool. Close that down, go back, make sure I didn't miss anything in the instructions for that. Create the select query, no conditional formatting, derive field for the current stock. Do not recreate the open source. So you're good to go. Again, use the work files that are out there on Blackboard for both X01, X04-01 and X04-02. You have to use the ones from this semester, okay? You got the compiled solution. These are each worth 5 points. I know that doesn't sound like much, but it's worth your while to sharpen your skills. And again, this one should not take you very long at all. Even this one, I can't see it taking more than an hour if you've already done T04 -01 and P01. You really understand how to make a report then based on a query by that time. So it's a good way for you to get a few extra points to make up if you've lost some early on here. If you have any questions, just let me know. There will be a submit item for each one of these. Make sure you put the right file in the right submit item. And I'll probably post that. You'll probably see P01 and X04-01 and X04-02 submit items all out there together. Make sure you put the right files in the right one, okay? And make sure, again, that they're the ACCDB files. Don't put the LACCDB file in there. We're looking for the ACCDB file to go, the proper one to go in each one of those submits. So, anyway, thank you very much and good luck.